How many times have you spent 10 seconds getting angry, but an entire day trying to calm down? And have you ever wondered why some people seem to control their emotions so effortlessly while you're still replaying that argument from 3 days ago? Here's the truth that might shock you. No one has ever made you angry. They simply touched a part of you that you don't yet understand. Think about it. Someone insults you and you explode. But that same insult to another person? They remain completely calm, like watching rain fall outside someone else's window. The difference isn't them. It's you. This isn't some mystical skill reserved for monks in mountain temples. This is a learnable ability that can transform your entire life. And today, you're going to discover exactly how it works through the story of a man who mastered it in the most impossible circumstances. Let me introduce you to Henrik. He built a steel manufacturing company from absolutely nothing, starting with borrowed tools in a rented garage. His employees described an eerie quality about him. He never got angry. Not when deals fell through. Not when equipment broke down at the worst possible moment. Not even when circumstances would make most people lose their minds completely. His team would watch in disbelief. A supplier would fail to deliver critical materials, costing tens of thousands of dollars. Henrik would simply nod, ask 3 questions about finding alternatives, and move on. No raised voice, no slamming doors, no passive-aggressive comments in the following days. Just calm, focused problem-solving. But here's where the story gets really interesting. One evening, his wife of 15 years sat him down and confessed to a 6-month affair. 6 months, with someone they both knew. Most people in this situation would explode, tables would flip, voices would shatter windows, accusations would fly like knives. The relationship would end in a nuclear meltdown of rage and betrayal. Henrik asked 3 questions. Are you happy? What do you need from me? Do you want to continue this marriage or end it? His wife later said those questions terrified her more than any anger could have, because she realized she was sitting across from someone who had complete mastery over his inner world, someone who felt everything, but allowed nothing to penetrate the center of his emotional fortress. Now, if you're thinking Henrik was emotionless or cold, you're missing the point entirely. He felt the betrayal. He felt the pain. He felt the shock. But he had built something that most people never discover. An internal structure so solid that external chaos couldn't shake it. Here's the concept that changes everything. Every single person who makes you angry is holding up a mirror. They're showing you something about yourself that you haven't accepted yet. This is called the shadow mirror principle. When someone triggers you, they're not creating new emotions. They're activating emotions that already exist inside you, buried in places you don't want to look. The intensity of your reaction isn't about them. It's about what they're reflecting back to you about yourself. Let me give you 3 questions that will revolutionize how you see every trigger in your life. What specific trait or behavior am I judging in them? Where do I have that same trait, even in a tiny way, that I haven't accepted? What is this trigger trying to teach me about myself? These questions sound simple, but they're devastatingly powerful. Let me show you how they work in everyday situations. Your neighbor plays loud music at night. Your blood boils. But the anger isn't really about the noise. It's about your fear of not being respected, not being valued, not having control over your own space. The music is just the trigger. The fear is the real issue. Your partner takes hours to respond to your messages. You feel anxious, then irritated, then angry. But again, the delayed response isn't the real problem. It's touching your fear of abandonment, your fear of not being important enough, your fear of being forgotten. See how this works? The external trigger is just revealing the internal wound, and once you understand this, everything changes, because now you're not fighting the person or the situation, you're healing the actual source of your pain. Back to Henrik. Years before the affair, Something happened that forged his emotional immunity. His business partner, someone he trusted completely, stole his largest client. This wasn't a small account. This was the contract that represented 40% of his company's revenue. The betrayal was calculated, deliberate, and could have destroyed everything Henrik had built. Any reasonable person would have been consumed by rage. Lawyers would be called. Revenge would be plotted. Late-night planning sessions about how to destroy the betrayer's reputation would take over every waking moment. Henrik did something different. He asked himself one question that changed the trajectory of his entire life. What part of me is this person reflecting back? He sat with that question for 3 days. No action, no reaction, just observation. And slowly, 3 painful truths emerged from the depths of his consciousness. The greed he saw in his partner, he found it in himself, a terror of poverty that made him hoard and grasp and never feel satisfied with enough. A fear so deep that it colored every business decision, every relationship, every moment of his life. The deception he condemned in the betrayer, he found it in himself. All the times he wasn't honest about his feelings, all the times he smiled when he wanted to scream, all the times he pretended to be fine when he was falling apart inside. He was lying to himself constantly, and his partner's lie was just a bigger, more obvious version of his own internal dishonesty. The betrayal itself? He found the capacity for that too. Times when he had chosen his own interests over others. Times when he had been selfish and justified it with sophisticated reasoning. Times when he had hurt people and told himself it was necessary. This wasn't about excusing his partner's behavior. This was about seeing the complete truth. And that truth was devastating and liberating at the same time. Once Henrik understood the mirror principle, he discovered something else. A space that most people never even know exists. He called it the reaction gap. Imagine this. Someone says something designed to hurt you. In normal consciousness, the words hit your ears and you react instantly. Anger explodes, words fly back, the fight begins. The whole process takes maybe 2 seconds from hearing to reacting. But Henrik learned to slow down time itself. Not literally, but perceptually. When someone said something triggering, he experienced it in slow motion. The words would hang in the air between them. And in that suspended moment, he had a choice. He could reach out and grab those words, pull them into himself, make them part of his identity, let them wound him. Or he could let them pass through the space around him like wind through an empty room. Present, but not grasping. Observed, but not absorbed. This is the skill that changes everything. And here's how you develop it. First, start seeing difficult interactions like you're watching a movie. You're present, but you're also the observer. Someone criticizes you. Instead of immediately defending, watch yourself want to defend. Notice the heat rising in your chest. Notice the words forming in your mind. Notice all of it like a scientist studying a fascinating phenomenon. Second, observe your emotions as a third party. When anger comes, don't say I am angry, say there is anger present. This tiny shift in language creates massive space, because you're not the emotion. You're the awareness that notices the emotion, and that awareness cannot be damaged by anything external. Third, name what you're feeling out loud, even if just to yourself. This is anger. This is fear. This is shame. The moment you name an emotion, you create separation from it. You're the one naming, and the emotion is the thing being named. This immediately reduces its power over you. Now we get to the practical structure. Henrik developed what he called the 3-boundary system. 3 layers of psychological protection that filter everything coming at you. Master these 3 layers, and you become emotionally invulnerable. The first layer is the relevance filter. This is simple, but ruthlessly effective. Every piece of feedback, every criticism, every attack gets asked one question. Is this useful for my growth? If yes, extract the lesson and discard the emotion. If no, let it pass through without attaching to it. Someone calls you incompetent. Relevance filter asks, is there truth here I can use? Maybe yes, maybe no, but the filter separates useful information from emotional manipulation. The second layer is the ownership boundary. This one's crucial. Other people's emotions belong to them. Their anger is theirs. Their disappointment is theirs. Their fear is theirs. You can acknowledge it, you can have compassion for it, but you don't absorb it into your system. Your boss is having a terrible day and snaps at you. The ownership boundary recognizes that their stress belongs to them. You don't need to take it personally. You don't need to make their bad mood mean something about your worth. It's theirs. You're just present in the moment when it expressed itself. The third layer is the identity fortress. This is your unshakable core. When you know who you are at the deepest level, criticism cannot penetrate to your center. Someone can attack your actions, your choices, your words. But if your sense of self is solid, those attacks cannot reach your core identity. You made a mistake at work. That doesn't make you a mistake. You failed at something. That doesn't make you a failure. The action and the actor are separate, always. Let me give you everyday examples of how these three boundaries work together. Your boss is in a terrible mood and criticizes your work harshly in front of the team. Without boundaries, you crumble. You feel humiliated, angry, worthless. With the three boundaries, here's what happens. Relevance filter asks, is there legitimate feedback in this criticism that can help me improve? Extract that. Ownership boundary recognizes that your boss's harsh delivery and public shaming is about their poor emotional management, not about your worth. Identity Fortress reminds you that even if you made an error, you are not defined by that error. A coworker constantly makes negative comments about everything. Without boundaries, you either avoid them or absorb their negativity and feel drained. With boundaries, you recognize their negativity belongs to them. You can be present without taking on their emotional state. You maintain your own energy while having compassion for whatever pain drives their constant criticism. Your partner gives you the silent treatment. Without boundaries, you panic, you chase, you try to fix whatever you think you did wrong. With boundaries, you recognize that their choice to withdraw is their choice. You can offer connection without making their withdrawal mean you're unlovable. You maintain your center while giving them space to process their emotions. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Henrik developed what he called X-ray psychology, the ability to see through people's attacks to the pain underneath. Every person who attacks you is confessing something. They're telling you about their wounds, their fears, their unhealed trauma. Once you learn to see this, anger becomes almost impossible. Because you're no longer fighting the person. You're seeing the hurt child underneath the aggressive adult. Someone calls you worthless. They're confessing their terror that they might be worthless. Someone mocks your dreams. They're confessing they gave up on their own dreams and it haunts them. Someone criticizes your appearance. They're confessing their own insecurity about how they look. Here are 3 questions to X-ray anyone who triggers you. What exactly are they attacking me about? What relationship do they have with that same thing in their own life? What pain would cause someone to attack another person about this? Let me show you how powerful this is with real examples. A family member constantly criticizes your career choices, saying you're wasting your potential. X-ray vision reveals they likely feel they wasted their own potential, and seeing you take risks reminds them of their own regrets. They're not really attacking you. They're attacking the part of themselves that settled. A friend makes subtle jabs about your relationship, implying your partner isn't good enough for you. X-ray vision shows they're probably unhappy in their own relationship, and can't stand seeing you happy because it highlights what they're missing. The attack is a confession of their own pain. Someone on social media aggressively argues with your opinions, making it personal and nasty. X-ray vision reveals someone so desperate to be right because they feel wrong about themselves. They need to win arguments to feel valuable because they don't feel inherently valuable. Once you see this pattern, something extraordinary happens. The attacks stop landing. Because you're not taking them personally anymore, you're seeing through them to the suffering underneath. And that changes everything. This brings us to emotional alchemy, the art of turning the people who trigger you into your greatest teachers. This is advanced level work, but it's where the real transformation happens. Henrik taught a 3-step process for this. First step, trigger mining. Every time someone makes you angry or upset, immediately ask, what am I learning from this feeling? Not from them, from the feeling itself. You feel disrespected? You're learning you still need external validation. You feel excluded? You're learning you haven't fully accepted yourself? You feel attacked? You're learning where your boundaries are weak. The trigger isn't the problem, it's the diagnostic tool showing you exactly where you need to grow. Second step, shadow integration. This is deep work. Go directly into the fear, shame, or false belief that the trigger activated. Don't run from it. Don't suppress it. Go into it with curiosity. Someone triggers your fear of being abandoned. Instead of distracting yourself, sit with that fear. Where did it come from? What belief about yourself does it reveal? What would it mean to heal it completely? The trigger just showed you exactly what needs healing. Third step, strength synthesis. Take what you learned and convert it into capability. The weakness becomes the strength. The wound becomes the superpower. Real example. Marcus was a manager who would explode whenever his team didn't follow through on commitments. He'd rage, humiliate people, create a toxic environment. One day he applied emotional alchemy. Trigger mining revealed he was angry because he felt disrespected when people didn't deliver. Shadow integration showed him this came from childhood feelings of being ignored and dismissed. But going deeper, he realized he was a terrible motivator. He gave orders but never inspired. He demanded but never led. Strength synthesis meant he transformed his trigger into a skill. He learned to motivate, to inspire, to lead in ways that made people want to follow through. Within 6 months, he went from the manager everyone feared to the leader everyone wanted to work for. The very thing that triggered him became his greatest strength. Now here's the critical warning. Some people learn these skills and become cold, distant, superior, untouchable in the worst way. They confuse emotional immunity with emotional isolation. Don't make this mistake. The goal isn't to become a robot. The goal is to become what Henrik called a compassionate warrior. Unmovable on the inside, warm on the outside, solid as a mountain internally, gentle as sunlight externally. You don't absorb other people's emotions, but you don't abandon them either. You can be present with someone's pain without making it your pain. You can have compassion without taking on their suffering. You can help without needing to fix. This is the balance. Think of it like being a lighthouse. The lighthouse stands firm in the storm. The waves crash against it, but it doesn't move. Yet it keeps shining its light to guide ships safely home. That's the compassionate warrior, unshaken by the chaos, but radiating guidance and warmth to others. This is where emotional Aikido comes in. In Aikido, you don't fight force with force, you redirect energy. Same principle with emotions. Someone comes at you with anger. Instead of reflecting anger back or shutting down, you redirect that energy into problem solving. What are you really upset about? What do you need? How can we address this? Someone comes with anxiety. You redirect that into clarity. What are we actually worried about? What's in our control? What's the next right step? Someone comes with grief. You redirect that into compassion. Let yourself feel this. I'm here. You're not alone in this. You're not absorbing their emotion. You're transforming it into something constructive. That's mastery. Let's bring this all together into a simple checklist you can use every single time someone triggers you. Think of this as your new emotional operating system. Step 1. Pause. Just stop. Don't react. Create that golden gap between trigger and response. Even 3 seconds changes everything. Step 2. Observe like a third party. Watch yourself about to react. Notice the emotion rising. Name it. This is anger. This is fear. This is hurt. Step 3. Ask the mirror question. What is this person reflecting about me that I haven't accepted? What part of me is being revealed right now? Step 4. Apply the 3 filters. Is this feedback relevant and useful? Whose emotion is this, really? Does this attack my actions or my core identity? Step 5. Choose your response. Not reaction, response. Reaction is automatic. Response is intentional. You're no longer being controlled, you're choosing. Let me leave you with 3 powerful truths to anchor in your mind. Every attack is a confession. When you truly understand this, anger becomes nearly impossible. You're seeing the wound underneath the weapon. No one makes you angry. They only touch what you haven't understood about yourself. This isn't victim blaming. This is power reclaiming. Because if they can't make you angry, they can't control you. Real strength isn't being untouchable. Real strength is touching everything without being changed. You can be present with chaos, pain, anger, betrayal, and remain centered. That's true invulnerability. Now I want to hear from you. Who is the person who triggers you most easily? What do you think they're reflecting back to you about yourself? Drop your answer in the comments. Sometimes just naming the pattern begins to dissolve its power over you.